Hello and welcome. I'm Jane of Amethyst Living, and welcome to my latest broadcast, my second broadcast in the series I'm calling The Secret Spirit. My guest today is Claire Higgins. And as you know, hi Claire, and as you know, The Secret Spirit is all about my curiosity and interest in what makes people tick and what drives them in their life. What work they do, but also what has brought them to the point of doing the work that they do. A bit of a life story, a bit of a conversation perhaps around spirituality or belief or just inner stuff. And I know that lots of you watched my previous conversation in this series with Edward Foster, a writer, author, and musician. And today I have Claire here who describes herself as a possibility coach. And Claire helps, I think, particularly young people, younger professionals, work out what it is that they want to do in life rather than what other people have told them they should be doing, and really figure out their own path, I suppose. So welcome, Claire. I hope that was a good enough description of the work that you do. And I'm really interested actually in the work that you do, as you know. And perhaps you could tell me a little bit about what you do with younger people, but people of all age groups, I think, and also what brought you yourself to doing that kind of work.
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction. So what I do is I help people who are feeling stuck, and it tends to be people that have got on the treadmill of life. So they've gone to university, they've got the good job that's secure and stable, everything that society or your parents or friends tell you should be doing. And then they get to a point where they realize, I'm not actually happy. I'm not doing what I love. There must be more to life than this. And that's the point where I step in and we have a conversation to see what would make you happy. And a lot of the time people haven't ever sat down and thought about what actually is the thing that is going to light them up and is going to be their true calling, their purpose in life. So I help them to really get started on this journey. And there's several parts of the journey, and we could get into that. But I know you asked me about my why. So I feel like the helping people part of my journey has always been with me. So I was encouraged to help people when I was younger, from the lady in the supermarket. And it felt good to help people. I did caring for the elderly. I did welfare rep at university. And it always felt great to be connected to someone, to connect to them in a different level, so really see through what they think they want and help them get what they actually need. And that has always been a part of my journey. And I've been doing life coaching for about 3 years. And before that, I was in sales for a lighting company, which seems totally different. And a lot of people ask me, it's oh, did you hate it? Is that why you left? And I didn't have this dramatic, oh, my life's awful, I need to switch. It was this slow, I really like what I do. I loved the company. I really believed in what we were selling. The people were great. And it was just a moment of, actually, have I sat down and ever thought about what I wanted? Because I did the kind of treadmill thing. I went to university. I got the good job. I was working. I was earning good money, living in London. And it was fun. And there was more. So my people tend to be people that it doesn't have to be this burnout, this I really don't like my life. It can be this, have I ever sat down and thought about what I really, really want? What's going to light me up? What's going to fill my soul, fill my heart, and just really be the thing that I was born to do. So then I heard about life coaching from a friend, and just straight away it clicked. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized, oh, this is my skill set. This is what I'm going to be really good at. This is where I need to be, really. And from there, I just decided that's what I'm going to do. Decided to go traveling because I love traveling and I felt like that would be a really good experience to grow some more and learn more about people. And then I came back and started my journey into life coaching.
So that's really interesting, because, as you say, you didn't have the sort of classic trajectory there of, for me, it was like desperate to get out of this work that wasn't right for me. And I think a lot of people are like that. But it sounds for you as if you were much more considered about it and much more able to be not pushed into it, but to kind of make your own decision about that. It wasn't like there was this desperate kind of inner impulse saying, I've got to get out of this job or die kind of thing, which I think a lot of people do feel. So you were able to, you were really able then to reflect on that quite sort of deliberately and quite consciously, and see that you needed something else than what you were getting from your employment. I just find it very interesting that you didn't get to that desperate stage, that you were already very aware, I think, of the distinction between this job is great and it's giving me lots of things that I need, but it's maybe not what I want. So I'm really kind of interested in that you were so kind of tuned in already that you were able to make that decision very easily, it seems.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I speak to people and they're like, I'm fine. And there's still like this myth that if you see someone, whether it's a therapist or a life coach, your life has to be falling apart. And,
no.
And it doesn't. So I love to help the people that were like me. Like, life was fine. Like, life was even good. And there was something more that I wanted to explore. And I think for me, so kind of bringing this to the spirituality piece, for me, I've always like had an instinct and had a trust that like I'm being guided somewhere, like that there is a plan for my life. So I was created with a certain set of skills that are going to serve the world. And if I listen to that, then I can be guided in a certain way. So it sounds different when I speak to someone that has faith or someone that doesn't have faith, and it works the same. But what it's doing is like really thinking like, well, what are your skills? What do you love to do? What lights you up? And like, what gifts do you think you have to offer the world? And if it's the first time you've sat down to think about it, it's really difficult because people aren't used to thinking about what they're really good at. And yeah, like one of my favorite questions to ask people is, tell me 3 things you love about yourself. And it's really difficult for people because we're not used to thinking about like why we're amazing and what things we have to offer the world and what we love about ourselves. So then it's really difficult to sit down and think, well, what is my calling? Because what are my gifts?
And I think the way you answered that question at the start, you make it sound very, I can't remember now exactly what word you used, but you make it sound like a very cosmic situation. It's a very big situation where you're saying, what am I in this world for? And what's my calling? And what are my gifts? These are really, and I use this word in a good way, it's not often used in a good way, but these are very loaded words. They're very powerful words, to put it another way. So, I mean, you're speaking to people on a very direct and powerful level, I think, when you're posing those questions. And it's still true that despite, decades of what we might call American psychobabble and self-love courses, that we still find it hard to find 3 things about ourselves that we might like, or some of us do. And I think that's so. And I mean, I'm gathering that you work a lot with younger people, so I find it still very interesting that younger people find this. I'm sure people of all ages in particular, but I mean, I'm in my early 60s, and I'm assuming that people younger than me find that kind of discourse easier, but obviously not. I wonder, and this is not maybe a question that you can answer, but I'm wondering if life has got harder as for people who are younger than me. I mean, I was a student in the 1970s, and life was pretty free and easy in the 1970s. You know, you had a student grant. You you know, which was pegged at originally it was meant to be equivalent of some working wage. You know, I don't think it was by the 70s, but it was still generous. So we didn't worry about student debt and then having to pay it off and then going into a career, you know, but there were fewer people at university proportionately. So I'm guessing now that the people you speak to who are younger than me have much more pressure on them to sort of fulfill a role that they maybe don't feel is the right one for them. Hence your very powerful questions. I don't know what you think about that. And the idea of the calling is something that is probably really quite alien to them because they've grown up in the world that is saying it's about ambition, or it's about status, or you've got to pay off your student loan or whatever. So I'm wondering what you feel about that, this notion of the calling and how that fits into our modern world, and particularly for younger professional people.
Yeah, so I think in terms of whether different eras are harder and easier, I think there are challenges throughout any generation and through any time. I think it's interesting what you touched upon about this going into a world where maybe there aren't as many jobs and there is a pressure to live a certain way. So I definitely can speak for kind of my like age group, young people, that it was, I don't know if it was a pressure, but it was just assumed. Like if you go to university because that makes sense, and then you get the good job. So, and then if you got the good job, you held on to it because you were really lucky to have a good job. And it seemed silly to start anything else because you have a job and you should be grateful that you have a job that pays money, and like that's great, and that's what life's all about. Then you can buy a house and you can get the car and like have fun when you retire. And I think it is changing a bit now with people being told more that they can do everything. And then that comes with its own set of challenges. That's, well, if I can do anything, that's a lot of things that I can do. Where do I start? So I think in terms of kind of following your calling, it's a big thing. It's like, it sounds huge and it's a lot of pressure, especially when say you've just finished school, or you're coming out of university, or you are in a job that kind of seemed like it would fit and it was safe. It's a big thing at any age to think about, well, what do I actually want? And what is going to make me happy? And is the grass going to be greener on the other side?
And I do think that the notion of a calling is one that's a difficult thing to grasp if you're in your late teens or early 20s, because let's face it, you haven't really, I mean, grasping what life is about, never mind what your own life is about, is a pretty big deal. And I think you do have to sort of give it time for the dust to settle, as it were. You know, going to university, getting the job and getting the house and all those things, maybe that is these are rites of passage that one has to go through anyway. I think you maybe have to do these things in order to find that this isn't enough. Is this all there is? There must be more to life than this. I think very few people can really latch on or really see clearly what their calling in life is going to be at the age of 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever. I'm wondering if, and I mean, I am just sort of putting this out as a matter for a conversation, really. I'm wondering if there is something about we need to be sort of get through our 20s in the prescribed role, and we need to do it, to see through it, perhaps. I don't know what you think about that.
I think So I'm not like keen on saying like you have to do a certain thing.
No.
I think I think you definitely don't need to know what your calling is and what your life's purpose is like at the start of your life journey. And I think we can be called to do many things. Like I feel like as part of my journey, my move to London, my working in sales in a totally different environment that I grew up in, kind of out of my kind of happy, safe, nice bubble, to London, where it was like, oh, now I'm here fending for myself, working in this industry, getting sent targets every day, like leaderboards, where you're at, like this kind of pressure. I feel like that was part of my journey and part of what I needed to grow as a person, to realize that I can like handle myself. I learned a lot about my skills and like how capable I was of really like stepping up when I needed to. So I feel like that was all part of my journey. And I think people's journeys can take various different ways. And we're not in a kind of society anymore where you have one job for 60 years and then you retire. People can dip in and out of different things. And I think kind of the key is really like every now and then sitting back and thinking, is this what I'm supposed to be doing right now? Is this making me happy? If not, what else is there?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the thing I sort of picked up on earlier in what you were saying, that you were able to sit down and reflect on that without it becoming a crisis for you. And I'm guessing, and as you were saying earlier, that's what you do in your work as a possibility coach, that you're helping people to work that out for themselves before it gets to that kind of make or break point. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have to be make or break, and it really, really doesn't. I suppose I'm interested also in exploring your idea, and we've used this word a lot already, of the calling and how faith and belief underpins that. And this belief that we are all here to fulfill our calling. It can be very hard, to work that calling out. And it can sometimes seem very big and very unmanageable. I mean, you and I have had conversations about this. It can sometimes seem very big and very unmanageable. And you also said earlier, if you're able to do everything, then that's unmanageable, So I'm wondering if in your work you find people who really have got, or how many people you feel have really not got the sense of how to define themselves in this kind of world that seems to have, on the surface, has no kind of obvious or easy tethers for one's faith or belief. How easy is it to help people when they have no kind of points of reference for that, because everything is now open to question and up for grabs, if you like, in faith and spirituality? I don't know how you find that, because you must have people you work with who really have got no sense at all of that in their life, and might or might not find that helpful. And I'm wondering how you deal with that with them.
Yeah, so I'm a Christian, and like my faith kind of plays a big part in why I do what I do. And I feel called to not be a Christian coach. So a lot of the people I'm speaking to are in the secular world, may never have experienced any sort of spirituality, and that's not something that they have, and they wouldn't necessarily say a calling, or I'm being like I have a purpose. Right. And what we all have is like a certain set of gifts that we possess, like whether you believed like you were created with them or not, a certain set of gifts that can lead you into doing something that is fulfilling and rewarding that you would enjoy. So this is the starting point. It's well, what makes you happy? So just generally list all the things that you do that you enjoy, that bring your life meaning, that ultimately fulfill you. And then how can you use these gifts that you have in your career, in your work, in your life? And then that kind of becomes the calling, because it's what makes sense with your skill set, and everyone has a unique skill set. So like my kind of overall purpose, I say, is to help people to feel loved, to like know that they're enough, and to know that they have like amazing, unique gifts to offer the world. And that you can have whether or not you believe in a God that created you. Like you can feel loved and you can feel enough, like just as you are, because I believe everyone is enough and is whole and beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, that's a really sort of beautiful and generous and kind of healing way to approach this. And I'm guessing possibly that some of the people you work with might not ever have thought of themselves or their life in that way. I mean, some people may take to it readily, but I'm guessing that other people are not able to take to it so readily. And because it comes from a place of your belief, and I'm just wondering if you find that people find that hard to accept at first, and how you get around that with them.
Yeah, it definitely is hard to accept if you've kind of grown up with our normal kind of way of being, where you notice your flaws and you try and make them better, and you don't really think about like all the things that you do really well in a day and all the things you achieve. So we're really good at noticing the things we haven't ticked off our list, but not the things that we have done and the ways that we are contributing to our lives and society. And I think like whatever like standpoint you come from, you can start to appreciate just at a you level the things that you actually do, the things that you achieve, the things that you're capable of. Because when people are like thrown into things, they tend to rise up and they tend to survive things, and people are much stronger than they think. And if you haven't been through that, then it's really hard to realize how strong you are, because you haven't had to use your strength.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's right. I absolutely agree. I think people are far more resilient than they realize. Absolutely. I mean, I think that's another thing about knowing your gifts and your calling in your late teens or 20s. You very possibly haven't really had that kind of testing in your life yet that will show you what you're capable of and how you are able to, as you say, rise above it. So everyone has that inner strength, much more inner strength than they believe. I think that's absolutely right.
Yeah, and on that, I think so that when I speak to people, I wouldn't say, let's get together and figure out your calling, because that does sound like massive. And that's kind of like this is what I know I'm helping people to do. But for them, to start with, I'm helping them to figure out what's going to make them happy, to figure out all the gifts that they possess, all the strengths that they've already displayed throughout their life, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great sort of encapsulation in a nutshell of what you do, really. Yeah, absolutely. There was something else that you touched on right at the beginning that I really wanted to kind of explore and talk about, and that was how we need things and we want things. And you've used, in talking about your work, about you many times now, you've said that this is what people really want. But I've often thought that what we want isn't what we need necessarily. And I wonder how you make that distinction. What you think, is it always right? And I don't mean right in a moral sense. Is it always appropriate to pursue the things that we want, or is that a sort of fantasy in a way? Is that not really what is necessary? Is it better to, or not better? Are the things that are going to be useful to us in life, do these turn out to be the things that we need, but they're not what we thought we wanted? I think that's what I'm trying to say. This discrepancy between need and want. I don't know what you would feel about that, and if you have thoughts about that from your work.
Yeah, so I think where the discrepancy is what people think that they want. So as we've touched on before, people think that they want a certain job because it will give them a certain level of security, a certain level of money, and then they do this job and then realize that, well, I'm working 12 hours a day and I don't have a life. Or someone comes to you and comes to me and they say, I want more confidence. And actually what they want is underneath that, and it's I want to love myself so then I can feel happy and good in any situation I'm in. So there's in coaching, it's you have you ask what they want, they give an answer, and then it's okay, what's underneath that? And why do you want that? And you become the child that's but why? But why? But why? And then you figure out underneath what is the real desire that they actually want. And then in terms of want and need, I think there's nothing wrong with going after what you want. So I wanted a life where I felt I had freedom, I could make my own hours, I didn't have to have a call before 10:30. And that's what I created. And that's what is making me happy and feel fulfilled. And then in terms of what we need, I think there are sometimes things that we don't want that we probably do need. In it, basics talking about our feelings, people a lot of the time don't want to do that, but at the end of it, it's exactly what they needed to get everything off their chest. And in the end, it was actually really the thing that got them to what they wanted.
Yeah, I suppose I was thinking at it more from, I mean, I hear exactly what you're saying in coaching terms. It's nothing wrong in going for what you want. But you've got to be absolutely honest that it's the authentic you speaking about what you authentically want, not trying to second guess what other people are telling you you should want. And I think that's quite hard. I think that is a quite hard thing in modern society, because we are really bombarded so much with ideas, images, particularly on social media, of what we think we should want, and what we think is going to make us happy. And of course, very often the things that make us happy are the things that are completely simple things, but we overlook them. We think it's something that we have to earn, or we have to buy, or whatever. So yeah, I think that's an interesting point, really. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we can totally think that what society is telling us is what we should want. So I should get a mortgage because that's what makes sense, and then I'm on the property ladder, and that's what I really want. And then there's lots of things like that people just do, and it could totally be the right thing for them, and maybe it is the sensible thing for them to do. And for some people, it isn't what they want, and they are being dragged along on this treadmill that I've talked about. I read an article, and the like one of the things that on their deathbed people would say is that they wish they'd lived a life truer to themselves, like rather than what other people thought.
Yes.
And it's just a really good quote to keep in mind. Like, am I doing this because I really want to do it, or am I doing it because this is what I think I should do? And it's really hard to decipher if you don't sit down and start like really thinking about what you want, and really thinking about like where your own values lie and where your own desires are. You can easily get swept up and have a completely different life to the one that you would have chosen.
Yes, yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And this idea that we can sort of have it all by having the career, etc., and then we retire and then we have the life we want, that is not having it all. That just isn't having it all. It's simply putting it on hold till you're 66 or whatever, you know. I think, though, that people find it very hard to jump off that career that they think they need to have. And for me, it certainly was one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make, because I found it absolutely terrifying. So I'm wondering again how you help people to, if that's what they decide they need to do, because I know this isn't a sort of a one size fits all, but I'm wondering how you help people deal with that fear or anxiety, if they have it, or anxiety or uncertainty about their future, if they really feel they've got to just throw everything in the air, resign from their corporate job, and follow something that they think will be fulfilling for them. How do you help people through that, and what are the sort of skills or whatever that you draw on to help them draw on in themselves to deal with that huge decision?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think sometimes the myth can be that you figure out what you want and then you quit your job and you just go for it. And in reality, like, I would never encourage anyone to do that. So there are ways that you can like really plan. So part of what I'll do in my coaching is we like start taking small action steps. And that might be to save up enough money that you have a year's worth of like cash to help you in your new venture, or whether it's like a way to kind of do it on the side. So I'll do my normal job and I'll dedicate 3 evenings a week to building up my business, or to researching different jobs that I think I might like better. So there are ways to do it in a way that isn't like I'm going to risk everything, because like we're realistic. Like, people have families to support and they have mortgages to pay and bills. So it's about like, how can I do it in a way that like makes sense and is sensible, and I've considered all the options. And I think that's what stops people. It's like, well, I can't because I have X, Y, and Z. I have a family to support. And actually, there are ways that you can both remain kind of safe, like look after your family, your like financial situation, whatever it is, and go after your dreams. So not let that stop you. And also, you don't have to have it right now. And then what I'd also say as well is so we're tapping into somebody's like unique gifts and skill sets. And for me, I think if you've figured out what that is, then it's most of the time it's going to work, because it is what you are good at. It's what your passion is. Like, it's where your passion is. So, and people are attracted to that. People will see that, like, oh, this business is her passion, and I want to be in on that because I see the energy and I feel it. So it's safe in that way. It's that you're doing the thing you're supposed to be doing.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I hear that from coaches, and you know, you do hear this a lot from coaches, and it sometimes can sound a bit glib, but describing it like that you can't, not that you can't fail, but you're likelier to succeed because you're doing something that you're already good at, and not just good at, but really passionate about, without having to kind of force it or put it on in any way. That does really make sense, totally. I was also wondering, though, when I asked that question, whether you think there is a more, another level to this, a profounder level to this on a kind of cosmic scale, where you think it's safe for people to dare, if you like, to step out of other people's expectations, and how you get that across to them. I mean, what you've described are very, and rightly so, very practical and material steps to help people feel safe in making a transition from the corporate job to their next job, whatever that might be, or their next way of life. I'm wondering if there's another profounder level at a more cosmic or global scale where you feel that you can either be sure in yourself that they will probably succeed, or you can actually reassure them in some way that they will probably succeed in what they're doing.
Yeah, so it's so my my kind of motto is anything is possible, and I really hold that for people. So I'm here like standing for your possibility even when you don't believe in yourself. And I don't like sit here and say it's definitely going to happen, this specific thing that you want is going to happen. I'm here saying there's no reason why it can't. Like we've discovered your skill sets, and we see that that's what you want. And I think the deeper thing that's really helpful is that no matter what happens, you'll be okay. And that's a lot of the work that I do, and a lot of how my faith has helped me in my journey is that I'm fully trusting that this is where I'm supposed to be and this is my calling. And if it's not, and if I then need to do something else or want to do something else, I'll be okay. And that's, I hold that for people. Like, you will be okay. You're more resilient than you believe. And sometimes it does take a leap of faith. And if you speak to business owners that are running these big successful companies, like you see their success. You don't see the 10 other businesses that they've tried and they've failed. And what differentiates them is that they keep getting back up. And after every failure, they learn something. So I'm not saying do this business idea and you're guaranteed to succeed. I'm saying it's possible. If you don't try, you'll never change. And through every time something goes wrong, you fall down, you get back up and you're stronger and you've learned something. And that gets you to the next place, which gets you to the next place, which ultimately gets you to exactly where you want and where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, that idea that you're right. So often we focus on the end result when we look at other people and we think, oh, it's so easy for them and they've got it all, and whatever it might be that they've got that we admire, they've got it all and it's all sorted. But we absolutely haven't seen them on the journey, and particularly at the start of their journey. And this really goes, I think, for any thing that we attempt in life. I mean, it isn't, of course, just about the work environment or business environment. It can be about any life journey, really, at all, or anything that we attempt at all. And I think that's just sort of great advice, that you keep going and you keep picking yourself up. And you're, as you said again and said at the beginning, we're much more resilient and stronger than we give ourselves credit for. And we learn that as we go through life. I mean, that is one of life's big lessons, that you can actually get round or work your way around or survive just about anything that life throws at you, and that you are okay. Yeah, I think that's a really interesting observation, actually. Have you found that does work for most of your clients? I accept that not everyone is going to succeed at their first attempt, and I'm not asking you to sort of comment particularly on your business as such, but more your observation of the people that you meet. Do most people that you encounter really find a way forward and find a way towards approaching the life that they want, and they're able to do it, and they find a more fulfilling life? I mean, given some support, do people manage to find that in your experience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the very fact that they've come to me, they've entered into a coaching relationship with me, and they've paid money, means that they're committed already.
Yes.
So I offered 25 free conversations to people the other day, coming out of lockdown, which I felt called to do. I actually ended up with about 50 people on my list. And I had one lady that I went to meet her, and I called her on the phone, and I said, I'm at the place, are you coming? And she said, I'm really sorry, I've totally forgot. What happened was, after our conversation, I sat down and I thought about what I wanted to get out of the conversation, which helped me figure out what I wanted to get out of my life. Because I'd figured out that, the perfect job came up, I applied for it, and I start next week. She's like, wow. I'm so sorry. And I was like, no, wow, my magic has gotten through the email to you already.
Yeah.
And it's that decision that I'm going to make a change that can change everything. So at that point, you've already decided change is possible. I might not know how, I might not know what it will look like, but I'm in this because I want something to be different. And then the people I work with take the extra step of, I'm going to put my money into this. And once you've committed with that, you're committed. You're ready to kind of get what you need. And that's the thing that will help them to get what they want.
Yes, I suppose that's true. It is the commitment, and that represented by the time and the energy of money and just generally time, that is the first and most important barrier, I suppose. It's the first step to that journey happening. Now, there was something else I really wanted to tease out of what you were saying, and I've managed to forget it now, and I can't remember what it was. But what would you say then to someone who feels that they are stuck in a situation in life, whether it's work or some other situation, and they feel that it's not fulfilling? They feel that there is more to their life, and they don't know where to start. What would you say to those people?
Let's have a conversation.
Okay, I need that conversation.
I know you.
As a start.
So I think the first step is getting all the thoughts out in the open. So a lot of the time we don't actually talk out loud or even journal the things that are going on in our heads. And things in our heads just seem really big, really tangled, really confusing, really complicated. And that a lot of the time is what's keeping us stuck. So just by speaking out, what's going on in your head is a really great way to start the unstuck process. So I was kind of joking, but a conversation is the perfect first step into helping people detangle their mind. And then it's I will be there asking questions and just helping them get deeper and deeper and figure out what's keeping you stuck. because like throughout our lives, we start to like build up a lot of like views of ourselves and what we're capable of. We build up views of the world and how things should be, and like rules that we should live by. And it's really good to like, when you realize like, oh, this is something that I've been thinking, and is this helping me now? And the chances are it might not be. So once you've kind of realized things like what your mind is telling you, you can start to say, well, maybe I can change it.
Yeah, I think that's so right. We often don't know what we're thinking till we hear ourselves say it. You know, I know from many conversations I've had myself with people, I didn't realize that was true, or I'd forgotten that, or which is another way of saying I wasn't aware of that. And a really good conversation with someone who kind of knows what they're doing can not steer you, that can untangle, unpack, and unpick this, what seems very, very complicated and just seems impossible to unravel. It's like a big ball of wool that a cat's played with or something, that you're absolutely right. Completely tangled up, or it can be. Particularly, of course, when we're feeling stuck and then emotions are getting into it. And that's when it gets really difficult, I think, for us to work out on our own where we're at and where we want to be. And yeah, I think that's really necessary in so many cases.
Yeah, so I had a coaching conversation with someone, and she was like, well, I'm not getting anything done because I'm just lazy. And I was like, is that true? She's like, what do you mean? I was like, well, do you get nothing done? And then she listed all the things that she like gets done in a day and the things she's got done that week. And she just had this aha moment that was like, oh, I actually do quite a lot. And her mind had like automatically been focusing on like the couple of things she didn't get done and missed the whole list of things that she does daily and that she has been getting done and that she has been working towards her project. And just in that moment, she could kind of drop the I'm lazy label that had been keeping her from doing the next thing that she wanted to do, and realize, oh, actually, I'm a doer. And the thing she went away with from that conversation with was, I am a doer. And she wrote that down on a piece of paper. And every morning she had that to remind herself, I'm a doer. And she got more done because of it.
Oh, that's really interesting. These stories that we tell ourselves about ourselves and where they come from is not perhaps in the kind of coaching relationship. That's maybe for some other person to work out. But how important it is to tell ourselves the right kind of stories that are authentic and accurate. That we're not telling ourselves positive lies, of course. You know what I mean? This idea of toxic positivity, where you can be telling yourself all sorts of things, but they're not necessarily accurate about yourself. But to be able to see yourself fairly clearly as possible, and to really get past the sort of misapprehensions we have about ourselves that hold us back. I suppose, though, we might have some misapprehensions that hold us back, but they're keeping us comfortable, if not safe. And I suppose that's a whole other thing, which is really quite a difficult thing to break through, because that's really a tricky one, I would think, where people, and I think I might include myself in this sometimes, we're hanging on grimly to the things that are keeping us comfortable, and we don't want to, break through the stuff. So I imagine you have sometimes, I'm sure you come up against that with people as well, that they will say, yes, I really want to get out of this, but actually can't quite face up to, or aren't able to face up to what needs doing in order to make that happen. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, totally. So one of the questions that I ask that I used to hate when I was like first learning how to coach, so I was being coached, and you'd come with a thing that, well, I want to stop doing this, and then my coach would ask me, well, what's the benefit of it? I'm like, well, there's no benefit. Like, it's not helping me. I want to get rid of it. That's why I'm here. And there's always some benefit. So as you say, it could be like keeping you safe, meaning that you like don't have to leave your comfort zone because like there's fear involved there, whatever it is. So it's figuring out the like what it's keeping you safe from, and then actually, do you need to be kept safe from that? And then a lot of what I'm doing is like giving the whatever it is like credit for like, oh well, it's kept me safe this long, it's got me to where I want to be, and now I don't need it anymore. So it's like, and then it's not trying to push it away, it's saying, okay, this is here, how can I carry on and not listen to it as much and know that it's just fear and I don't need it.
So there's definitely a way around these stories that we tell ourselves that we're resistant to dropping, It makes you think how resistant we can be. We might say, I really want to change, but I don't want to change if it means. It's very, very interesting how there's this inbuilt resistance and we don't know where it comes from, and that's maybe something for the therapist. I don't know, but
well, so at like an evolutionary level, it makes total sense because like fear of standing out, fear of not fitting in, it's the kind of thing that back in the day would get you killed. Like you had to be in a group, you had to be part of a tribe that everyone would keep each other safe, and if you were on your own, you wouldn't survive. So it's actually like this built-in fear. The same of like being afraid of like a lion. So like people don't like public speaking, and it's the kind of same adrenaline that shows up that's keeping us safe from like being attacked by a lion. And it's like logically we know that we're not going to die. There isn't a lion. Like if I'm on my own and I stand out, I'm not going to like lose all my friends. But there's still this like built-in fear that shows up that feels very real. And it's about kind of reassuring yourself, like, I am safe in this moment. I can do this. And then it's kind of like that, feeling the fear and doing it anyway, because fear will always show up. It's what's kept us safe. It's why we're still here, like hundreds of thousands of years later. And it's being okay with the fear, trusting that just because I feel fear doesn't mean I shouldn't be doing it, and like pushing through it, I guess.
Yeah, being able to understand objectively that the fear is not real anymore. It is something that was designed to keep us safe, but it's not appropriate in this particular situation, because if you're engaged in public speaking, a lion is not going to jump out at you from behind, wherever, from the wings, whatever. Yeah, I know. I mean, I think evolutionarily we are just so programmed to this stuff, and I think it is a tricky thing to get over. But yeah, I mean, I think certainly we can do it if we're given the right kind of guidance and support. There's no doubt about that. And I'm guessing you encounter that all the time, really, in your work. Yeah. So we're just approaching the end, really, of our time together. And I wondered if there was anything further in what we've been talking about that you wanted to reflect on or kind of tease out of what we've been talking about, because I found everything that we've been talking about so interesting. But I just wondered if there was some sort of final thoughts you wanted to really bring out of what we were discussing here.
Yeah, it's gone really quickly. It's been such an interesting discussion, and I think topics that we could speak forever on. The thing that has stuck with me is this like learning to love who you are. And I think that's at the core of what I do, and at the core of kind of really like being happy in your body, in your reality. So it's the question, like, name 3 things you love about yourself, and do that every day. Make that a habit. Like, really start to like believe that you're exactly who you're supposed to be. You have these amazing gifts. You are enough as you are. And it's from that place that really anything is possible.
I think that's a really inspiring message to end our conversation on. You know, love yourself, find 3 things about yourself you love. You know that you're exactly who you're meant to be and that anything is possible. I think these are just sort of really inspiring and remarkable things that we need to bear in mind and constantly reaffirm to ourselves. No matter where we are in our life, actually, at any stage of our life, actually, they're really, really worth affirming. Yeah, so thank you, Claire, for a very, very fascinating conversation. It's been really great to hear more about your work and you kind of what underpins it for you and what brought you to doing your work. I see we have a couple of people watching. Thanks very much for watching us. And this will also be on replay later on my various pages. So I just want to say thank you very much, Claire Higgins, for the conversation. It's been really nice to talk to you. And thanks to everyone who's been watching us today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. That's been The Secret Spirit with me, Jane, and Claire Higgins, Possibility Coach.